Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Mummy Cold Case. The Federal Bureau of Investigation recently cracked its coldest case ever, dating back 4,000 years to ancient Egypt. The FBI extracted DNA from a mummy's head and was able to identify the long-dead individual. The mystery began in 1915 when a team of American archaeologists discovered the severed mummy head in the Egyptian necropolis of Deir el-Bersha. The head was sent back to America and stored at Boston's Museum of Fine Arts. But no one was ever able to figure out just who the head belonged to. It had been separated from its body and was found in a tomb that may not have been its own. The head was uncovered inside the tomb of Jehutiknacht and his wife, a governor from the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. But in the 4,000 years since the tomb was built, it was robbed and ransacked numerous times. The bodies within were tampered with, and the burial site was almost burned down. To make matters even more confusing, the head had many of its most important bones removed. Things like the cheekbones and part of the jaw hinge were taken after death. It was part of an ancient ritual to allow the dead person to eat and drink in the afterlife. In 2016, a piece of tooth was brought to forensic scientist Dr. Odile Laurel with the FBI. She analyzed the DNA inside the tooth and confirmed that the head belonged to a man, and that it was most likely Governor Jehutiknacht. There was a big fuss for over a century about who the head belonged to, and in the end, it was the same guy who owned the tomb. Number 9. The Queen's Chamber. Deep inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu, there is a maze of tunnels and chambers. The entrance to the pyramid is located near the ground level. Through the entrance, which goes diagonally down into the structure, there then comes a fork. The tunnel splits into a descending passageway and an ascending passageway. If you take the passageway leading up, you wind up in the Grand Gallery. This is a super passage that goes to the very heart of the pyramid, to its core where a mysterious chamber sits seemingly unused. It's called the Queen's Chamber, and nobody is really sure what it was used for. The chamber was discovered in 1872, hidden behind a solid wall of brick. For whatever reason, it had been sealed away as a secret inside the pyramid. When researchers entered the room, much to their disappointment, they didn't find anything. The room is finished with smooth limestone blocks and has a gabled ceiling. The masonry is exquisite, and yet there seems to have been no reason for it. It was empty except for a small copper object, a chunk of wood, and a random hook. There's been a lot of speculation over what was contained within the Queen's Chamber. Some say it was once full of treasure, but that it was pillaged over time and the door was sealed. Others believe the room, due to its location underneath the King's Chamber, was used as a spiritual tomb for the soul of the king. While King Khufu's body was kept in one room, his eternal soul was put to rest in another. Number 8. King Tutankhamun. Prior to 1922, no one believed the tomb of King Tutankhamun would ever be found. Back then, the boy king who ruled for less than a decade, 3,000 years ago, was more of a myth than a reality. The general agreement among Egyptologists was that every tomb in the Valley of the Kings had already either been discovered or looted and destroyed. It came as a huge shock when King Tut's tomb was finally unearthed under over 150,000 tons of rock. It was extremely well hidden and would likely never have been found if archaeologists weren't actively searching for it. King Tut would probably still be resting in his grave right now, even though the tomb was found filled with more treasure than you could carry out in a wheelbarrow. It had been broken into before. One of the little-known facts about King Tut's tomb is that it had been robbed twice. It happened almost immediately after the burial. Looters had breached the door at the base of the stairs, taking a handful of smaller objects, and then fled. Ancient officials then sealed the opening, only to have it broken into a second time and more small objects stolen. The biggest mystery is trying to figure out when exactly the tomb became lost. Clearly, people knew about it in the years after Tutankhamun's death, but then, at some point in time, the tomb was forgotten, covered in sand, and buried under thousands of tons of rock. Number 7. The secret entrance. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built around the year 2500 BC as a tomb for King Khufu. If true, that makes the pyramid little more than a gigantic tombstone, and yet it's also filled with strange secrets. Some believe there are mysterious tunnels underneath the Giza pyramids leading to unknown locations. Some think the 3 pyramids worked as huge batteries for charging alien spaceships. There is even a theory about a secret entrance hiding near the top of Khufu's pyramid that leads down into secret and undiscovered chambers. Recently, one of these secrets of the pyramid was revealed. An international team of researchers with something called the Scan Pyramids Project identified an empty space. They used special, non-invasive scanning technology to look inside the structure. That was when they found a void hiding within the pyramid that doesn't seem to be attached to any known passage or chamber. This mysterious void is way above the Queen's chamber and next to the King's chamber. However, there appears to be no passage leading to it, and no way to get to it except for digging through with a jackhammer. It could be that this void was once reachable by a secret passageway, but that secret entrance has since been sealed. Nobody knows if there are bodies inside the chamber or if there was an engineering accident. All we know now is that there is a hole inside the pyramid, and we have no way of looking inside it. Number 6. Caves under Giza. British explorer Andrew Collins believes there is a system of caves, tunnels, and hidden chambers hiding underneath the pyramids of Giza. Andrew claims that beneath the Giza plateau is a lost underworld of the pharaohs, a world currently inhabited by colonies of bats and venomous spiders. Andrew claims that he uncovered the entrance to this creepy underworld after looking through the memoirs of British Consul General Henry Salt. Henry investigated an underground system beneath Giza in 1817 while traveling with the famous Italian explorer Giovanni Caviglia. Andrew studied the notes taken by the explorer and then found his own way into the underground complex through a secret, unmarked tomb west of the Great Pyramid. If what Andrew says is correct, the entrance to an entire subterranean system is hiding at the back of a cobweb-filled catacomb. A crack in the rock at the back of the tomb leads into a natural cave, which then opens into an underworld. However, there are a lot of professionals who believe Andrew is making his story up. Zahi Hawass, the chief of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, dismissed the discovery as nonsense. He says there are no new discoveries to be made at Giza. Number 5. Gabal el-Haridi. Archaeologists have just made some amazing discoveries at the Egyptian site of Gabal el-Haridi. Researchers found the remains of an old watchtower and an impressive 85 new tombs. The watchtower is a unique piece of ancient architecture. When it comes to discoveries in Egypt, people tend to focus on the tombs, the mummies, and the pyramids. But Egypt has lots of amazing architecture as well, just as impressive as the many wonders found throughout the old Roman Empire. This tower is an excellent example of that. The tower was a powerful fortification built beside the Nile River during the reign of Ptolemy III. He was the third ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty after the death of Alexander the Great, ruling Egypt between 246 and 222 BC. The tower was used specifically for guarding traffic moving up and down the Nile and collecting taxes. Think of it like the toll booth on a bridge, forcing everyone who passed to pay a little bit of money to the government. Then there were the 85 tombs, each of which was carved into the side of a mountain. Some of the tombs were reserved for workers, and others were more complex, with multiple levels and various chambers. At least 30 of the chambers still had their death certificates preserved in stone. These ancient certificates detail the name of the deceased, their age, their place in society, and even the names of their parents. Number 4. Forgotten rituals. Berenike was a Greco-Roman seaport built on the coast of Egypt's eastern desert. A recent archaeological dig here revealed a religious complex from the late Roman period between the 4th and 6th centuries AD. This was in the dying years of Egypt, when ancient Egypt was a thing of the past, and the nation was little more than a fractured state being fought over by multiple powers. The religious complex was excavated by researchers with the University of Delaware. Around the time the temple was built, The nomadic group known as the Blemmyes was trying to hold control over the region. These people had come up from Nubia and were hoping to secure a small piece of Egypt for themselves. The complex was already there, but the Blemmyes adapted it to their own belief system. What archaeologists found was a traditional Egyptian temple used by an invading force of Nubians for their own mysterious rituals. The team found 15 dead falcons inside the shrine, most of them decapitated. They also found the remains of eggs that had been buried within the temple. Then there's the mysterious stone slab with an inscription that reads, "It is improper to boil a head in here." In other words, nobody was allowed to boil animal heads inside the temple. So, what were the falcons for? It's believed the Blemmyes had combined local Egyptian beliefs with their own, and that there was heavy worship of the god Khonsu here, the moon god often depicted as a falcon. Number 3. Newly found tombs. More tombs have been discovered at the great necropolis of Saqqara, south of Cairo. That shouldn't come as a big surprise considering how many new tombs are being discovered here all the time. In this instance, 5 new stone burials have been found dating from between 2700 and 2055 BC. They were uncovered near the less popular Pyramid of Merenre, which stands just over 150 feet tall and was built during the 6th dynasty. The 5 tombs are so wonderfully decorated that they are still full of color. Researchers say they likely belonged to top officials in the ancient Egyptian government. At least 2 of the tombs belong to women, with one of them being a priest of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of fertility and love. Her name was Peti, and she must have been a very important person in society. She wasn't just a priest, she had some kind of influence within the government. It's also shocking to see that women could be priests almost 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. Number 2. Lost Egyptian Sun Temples. Archaeologists carrying out an excavation in Abu Sir, near both Cairo and Saqqara, recently discovered the ruins of an ancient temple. This temple is believed to be one of the 4 lost sun temples from Egyptian legend. The site of Abu Sir isn't quite as well known as many others in ancient Egypt, but it is hugely important. It's a necropolis from the Old Kingdom that served as a primary cemetery for the previous Egyptian capital of Memphis. So far, archaeologists have identified 14 royal pyramids, tombs from the 25th century BC, and now a mysterious temple. It was researchers from Poland and Italy who came across the newest discovery. They were excavating the temple of Pharaoh Nayusera-ini from the 5th dynasty when they found the remains of a mud brick building. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities believes the mud brick building is the ruin of a sun temple. The sun temples were constructed during the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, built across Egypt by 6 different pharaohs. Each pharaoh built their own glorious sun temple for the worship of the sun god Ra. As of right now, only 2 of the temples have been found. This newest discovery at Abu Sir could be the 3rd, meaning there are only 3 left hiding somewhere in Egypt. However, it's in such a disastrous state, archaeologists haven't been able to confirm it as one of the legendary temples. Number 1. Ancient mummification. Researchers have just made a shocking discovery regarding the history of mummies. It turns out the science of mummification in Egypt is 1,000 years older than anyone previously believed. The discovery came in 2019 when the mummy of a high-ranking aristocrat was found in Egypt. The individual wasn't that important, but his mummification was. He is one of the oldest Egyptian mummies ever found, dating back to over 4,700 years ago. He was found wrapped in woven linen and smeared with fine resins. The linen and resin were hugely important because these particular materials were supposedly not used to make mummies until about 3,700 years ago. Up until now, researchers believed Old Kingdom mummification was extremely simple. There would be basic desiccation, no removal of the brain, only a couple of internal organs taken out, and very little detail paid to the exterior of the mummy. But this newest mummy was totally unique, covered in resins and textiles as if it had been made 1,000 years later. The person inside the wrappings was named Kui, and he was found buried in Saqqara. With this new information, archaeologists believe history books about the mummification process will need to be rewritten. Thanks for watching! What's your favorite part about ancient Egypt? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!